and Mr. Pugh. At this time, the second item on the agenda is the election of the chair for the Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee. The floor is now open for nominations.
McBride, I move to nominate Jessica Mackey.
I second that motion. Are there any other nominees? If not, Ms. Oni, may we take a vote?
McBride,
Yes?
Mackey,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Ms. Mackey.
Thank you.
You are now the chair of the Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee, and I will turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Ms. McBride.
And
Thank
we
you.
have, the agenda has already been developed, but it's your freedom to make changes should you wish.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Ms. McBride and Ms. Newton. Item number 2 is, well, this actually, I guess, number 3, adoption of the agenda. I'd like to ask Mr. Brown or Ms. Thomas if there's any other additions to the agenda.
No, Madam Chair, there's no changes to the agenda.
Madam Chair? Just while we're on the agenda, if we could go ahead and correct the enumeration. So that would make this adoption of the agenda item 3, items for discussion number 4, and then adjournment number 5.
Thank you. Motion?
Yes, it is.
I second.
Thank you. The motion and a second. So, Ms. Only, can you call the vote?
McBride,
Yes?
Mackey,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number 4, items for discussion 4A. Mr. Brown?
Yes, ma'am. So what I would like to be able to do is actually introduce the group that we have for the strategic planning process, which is Baker Tilly. They are listed on the line, and I think they can hear us. So what I want to share with you is that Baker Tilly, and I think it's in your packet if you look at, I believe, about page 2, just talks a little bit about their organization, letting you know that they are an organization that has a history of helping local governments with strategic planning processes. Is not their only function, but they do have history with that, and we have procured them to help us. What we're hoping to do and fully planning to do is with this group that has been appointed as the subcommittee is to roll information up through you, ultimately up to the council, so that we can actually put together a living strategic plan that can be utilized to facilitate all of our discussions and decisions about county services and county business. So with that being said, if Mr. David Eisenlohr can hear me, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Baker Tilly, if that's okay, Madam Chair, to briefly speak to this subcommittee on this morning, or
Yes.
afternoon, I'm sorry, it's afternoon. Mr. Eisenlohr, can you hear me, sir? So I know that we're, unfortunately, I think they were having some technical difficulties, so I think we can hear them, but they may not be able to hear us. Okay, I think we were just talking to one of our project contacts. So while they're trying to work through that, if you look in your packet, what we've done here, we knew it would just be a brief time, but what we wanted to do with this committee is we want to go ahead and show you kind of what we were planning. So the process is kind of laid out there. We were actually already supposed to be starting engaging the department directors as well as council members, getting input to build information towards the putting together of the information that we will be discussing. If you remember going through this process with TIP strategies, with economic development, is similar to that, getting the stakeholder input to form the foundation of information that would be considered. But ultimately, we would take that information and use that, and when we got to the culmination of that, which would be dealing with this at our in our mind, the council retreat, the end result would be that we would then have a living, breathing document that we would use going into the next fiscal year to make budgetary decisions and operational decisions with the council's blessing. And it looks like we may be ready to go. I see David talking, but I don't. He doesn't look, is he muted? He doesn't look to be. So the good news is that what you have before you is the outline of what that was going to look like. And now what we're going to do based off the appointment of this committee is that we'll basically work with you through this process to help formulate how we will actually move forward. So what you have is the template of what we had looked at as a staff and as the consultant, but anything that we need to do to modify that, whether that's timeline, whether that's input, we are ready to do that. They're ready to roll. They were meeting and calling people already. So anything we want to do to modify that in any shape, form, or fashion, we really want to do that now because we would really want to get this rolled so that at the retreat, we can wrap up and finalize the strategic plan and have it as a living document. So, Madam Chair, that's really the goal. That we, if you look at the timeline that's listed out here, and again, if something needs to change, we can do that. But the timeline is listed in there, talks about, here, you can see what's happening here in September, and then in October, November, with December being ultimately the finalized and presented plan. So going into that next calendar year, which is a part of our fiscal year as well, we would be rolled and ready to go. So, but we can always get Baker Tilly back again. But I don't think that should stop us from having any discussion that we want to have. We just might not be able to include them, unfortunately, with the technology.
So I guess based off the timeline that is shown on page 6, we are now, it's October 5th, and so I see several, there's 4 items that were listed under phase 1 that were scheduled to happen in September.
Correct.
So apparently we need to go ahead and update our schedule now based off this. So based off your conversations thus far with Baker Tilly, mobilizing strategic planning team, I'm assuming that is done, that is this ad hoc
Right.
committee. And then the 3 remaining items, can you give any update? Has anything started yet
Yes,
with
ma'am.
those?
So the strategic planning team, actually, this is before there was a committee from council. So this was staff, but yes, ma'am, that still has happened. The background data materials, they were asking us for information that we could provide to them or any previous plans that we had. And so we have provided them information already, so they do have that from us. Develop stakeholder and outreach and engagement plan, yes, ma'am. That's why they rolled that out. If you remember, a couple of meetings ago, I came to council in my update report and said, you're going to be hearing from Baker Tilly. We've developed this, be prepared. And then we said it again. That was all part of that process. So that has also happened. The only thing that really has changed, if you want to call it that, is the introduction of the committee, which doesn't change what we were planning to do. It just adds more resources because it adds council members to the process on this side rather than just as a part of the input process from the conversations. And then the project plan and milestone schedule that you're looking at that here in front of you. So yes, ma'am, that's occurred. And then now we are in that phase 2 section where we're looking at getting the internal feedback from the discovery interviews and focus groups. So that's where we actually are now in that process. And then adding this particular component as well. Again, anything here that we need to modify to better reflect what this group thinks should be happening, we are ready to do that. My goal as the county administrator, and our ultimate goal is really to develop that action plan that we can use going forward. So anything we can do to do that, I'm supporting.
I want to let my yes, Ms. Newton, have ability to ask questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brown, and
Yes,
thank you
ma'am.
for discussing the timeline. So I have one question about timeline and one about process. The timeline question is that there are items that are happening in December, and I'm not sure if those are items that require full council collaboration in December or if those are Baker Tilly items, but if you look at the draft Generally speaking, we don't meet all throughout December. It's a compressed meeting time. So I just want to ensure now, while we have time to adjust, that those deliverables are realistic.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that will be helpful by having the council group, is because now we'll be able to have that really get ironed out. So that could be one of the first things that we do, is figure out the scheduling as it relates to what requires council and what doesn't, Ms. Newton, because I don't have that question answered right now, because we now are involving council in this fashion. So that's something that would have to be a next question that's answered for us.
Sure. My second question is something that you and I have spoken about, is what, if any, plans are there to integrate, coordinate, collaborate, or totally separate, to keep the rhyme going, the community survey that we have said that we will do and the strategic planning process?
Yes, ma'am, that's a good question. And we had, and I might see if I can put Lori on the spot, because we had Government Community Services also meet side and side with us in this process. And I believe we were going to try to run them together as a part of the strategic planning process. Lori, do you have some feedback on that? I know we have Chris Creaser here. So we did have a meeting, but I think the idea was to utilize that as a part of this process. We were going to try to incorporate it, but we weren't sure exactly how we would want that to look, because we wouldn't have information ahead of time per se to really move forward in a way that we would like to. So it would almost kind of be like, what does this look like for the constituents going forward, versus give us feedback and then we develop our plan around that or including that. I believe that's what the discussion was, but we can verify that. But there was discussion. There has been a meeting on that, Ms. Newton.
Sure, and I'll let Ms. Thomas answer. There are different ways to do it, and I was just curious what the current thinking is.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. Just so you know, yesterday we were in the process of meeting with the vendor that will be doing the community survey. They are in the process of question development. Their process is a relatively quick one. So once they're finalized on the questions that they will be using, a lot of which came or were based around some of the feedback that was received from our last community survey, the Community Development Department will be pushing that out. It should be about a 4-week turnaround time. So the thought is that by the time we actually get to our strategy planning session in November, which would be an in-person a meeting with you all and with staff as well, led by Baker Tilly, that you would have that information to actually also share some of your thoughts and visions as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. With the HOBO, is it your goal, or I would like to see it as our goal, to use those priorities in our budget setting and development?
Yes, ma'am. They would be
Okay.
administrative and operational. Yes, ma'am.
All right, do we have Baker Tilly available now?
Laurie, were you just speaking to me? Laurie?
Are we muted? Tell them over here can hear.
We can hear you, sir. You can go ahead and start presenting.
Okay, Melanie, if you can hear me, go ahead and launch the PowerPoint. Okay, I hope you can all hear me. I'm David Eisenlohr with Baker Tilly. I know that time is at a premium and we've lost some of that, so we're going to move through this fairly quickly. I'm going to first ask Melanie and Woody to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the substance. My name is, again, as I said, David Eisenlohr, Managing Director with Baker Tilly, and strategic planning is one of the main focuses of my practice. Melanie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Varghese. I am a project manager for this engagement, and I will be your day-to-day contact for any questions throughout the course of our project. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Woody.
Hi, everybody. My name is Woody Battle. I've been with Baker Tilly for about 3 years now, and for this project, I'll be supporting Melanie and David through completion. So I'm a consultant on the team.
So we'll give you a real brief, very quick overview of the firm, and then move into the substance. Baker Tilly is actually, this slide needs to be updated. We're now the 9th largest accounting and advisory firm in the U.S., and we offer a very broad range of services to state and local government, from traditional audit and assurance kinds of accounting firm things to municipal management advisory, financial advisory, and to consulting. And Woody and Melanie and I are in the consulting practice. And again, as I've mentioned, we do a good bit of strategic planning for units of local government, special purpose authorities, and the like. Next slide. So we understand that you've got some real needs in terms of having a strong strategic planning plan in place, and so we're focused on things like sustainability, engagement with the right people within the organization, and development of a real clear sense of what your vision, your mission, and your values are as an organization. And then the real core of the matter is getting to very specific, achievable, time-bound, meaning we have deadlines, objectives and initiatives that are going to help you achieve that vision, accomplish your mission in accordance with your values. Classic strategic planning kind of effort. Next slide. A very quick conversation about what strategy is and maybe what it isn't. Generally speaking, at the governance level, at the policy-making level, the strategy focuses around mission and vision and values and big picture goals. These are the durable things that you want to accomplish over the long term, over the duration of the plan. And as you get further down the ladder of inference, there are also objectives and initiatives, and those are the task level of the plan that Mr. Brown and his management team are responsible for executing. So we move really from the very aspirational aspect. What do we want to be? What are we going to do over the course of this activity? Next slide.
And David, I believe we're getting a little bit of feedback from your computer. I'm not sure if we can mute your computer, if that would make a difference.
Is this better?
I believe so.
Okay. Can barely hear you, but here goes.
David?
We use a four-phase approach, and we are right now in the very early
Excuse me,
phase.
David?
We're defining what it is that we're going to do for you, and this committee is going to be an important part of that. And we want to hear from you and engage with you over the course of this to make sure that we're stay on track. We'll next move into Discover, which is mainly the data gathering element of the project. That's where we learn as much as we can about Richland County, about what your hopes and dreams are, about what the constraints to achievement of those hopes and dreams are. We're going to talk to a whole lot of different people. We'll do an environmental scan, and we'll do a SWOT analysis, and that will form sort of the factual foundation of the going forward strategic plan. The third phase is where we actually flesh out what the plan looks like and do that through an interactive engagement, workshop, retreat kind of a setting. And that's where we'll begin to get down to what are those key goals that we have to accomplish over the life of the strategic plan. And then the final phase is, okay, we've got a plan now. How do we make it come alive? How do we make it a part of how we actually manage the organization? Next. Melanie, you want to talk about timeline?
Sure. Thanks, David. And I'm hoping everybody can hear me clearly. I know we are walking through this document. I believe this presentation will be shared with everyone as well. But we just wanted to briefly cover our project timeline. So as David mentioned, there are 3 different phases that we'll be working through from September through December. So in the month of September, we did complete our first phase, which is define. So that is when we collected some initial background data and materials. We developed our plan in terms of who we will be engaging with and developed our project plan and our milestones. And now moving into the month of October, this is really when we move into our second phase, which is discover. And that is when we'll be really conducting our interviews and our focus groups. We'll be engaging with various department leaders as well as council, and we will begin to summarize and identify our base findings. As we move into the month of November, that is when we are targeting having a leadership strategic planning retreat. And so during that retreat, as David mentioned, we will be conducting various activities to help define the vision, mission, values of the strategic plan. And also within the month of November, we will be working through creating the strategy map, continuing to identify and document any operating objectives and initiatives, and then we'll be developing a strategy deployment map and strategic plan for you. So really our hope is that through the month of December, we'll be able to finalize all of our deliverables, including the strategic plan. That way it can feed into the budgeting cycle, which begins in January. So with that, I will just touch on this next slide, which is just in terms of contribution that we're looking for. We are looking to our Richland County leaders to just serve as visible champions of the strategic planning effort, to provide that overall direction and guidance to the planning team, to participate in any regular progress meetings as feasible for everyone's schedule, and to encourage everyone to participate within our engagement. And as we mentioned earlier, we will be conducting interviews with staff and with department leaders. We'll be conducting focus groups as well as a senior leadership planning retreat in order to develop the strategic plan for you all. So with that, I believe that summarizes our presentation. I'm not sure if we'll be able to hear everyone quite well for questions and answers, but I will turn it over and see if we can take any. If not, we are available via email at any point. If you have any follow-up questions for us, we're happy to answer after this meeting. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Any committee members have any questions? Ms. Newton.
Thank you. Just to repeat the previous question that I asked the administrator about the timeline, looking at the month of December where council has an abbreviated meeting schedule, does your current timeline require collaboration between us, or is that work that you'll be doing primarily without us?
So David, I'm not sure if we're able to hear you, but I can briefly answer that question. So our hope is to engage with you all mostly in the months of October and November as we conduct several of those initial interviews and focus groups. And then really the month of December is just to finalize our strategic plan, and we will certainly work with your schedule to make sure that we're able to present our final deliverables in a time that's reasonable.
Thank you.
So I guess I know you've given us a timeline, and kind of I'm wanting to hear, what do you deem are the next steps and asks that you have of this committee and of council?
So in terms of next steps, really we wanted to kick off this meeting with this committee, and we will be scheduling follow-up interviews individually with you all and with different department leaders. We're hoping to complete that over the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on everyone's availability. And then if there's any progress updates that you all would like from us, we are more than happy to join and provide those updates as we go.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administrator Brown, I am totally confused I see that we've hired a consultant. We've been talking about objective phases, project timelines. What are we building here? Are we building a spaceship? Are we redoing a parking lot? Nobody has told the public out of this agenda or me, what are we planning for? It's kind of just there. We're talking all this, but I haven't been given any specifics as to what we're trying to achieve here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Malinowski. So the staff was working on developing a strategic plan, utilizing the process where we would incorporate input from council members to ultimately result in a document that we would be using to make decisions. And then somewhere between that process and today, the council chair established a ad hoc committee for the strategic planning process to include council members as a group of a committee group to participate in that process as well to help facilitate that process. So that's what's happening here. But this is all about the strategic plan that we've been talking about, at least since I started working here, developing a strategic plan that the council could use, that the county could use as a whole to make decisions about how the county conducts its business and where we put their focuses its resources. So that's all this is, Mr. Malinowski.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to get with you another time on this, please.
Okay, sure.
All right, any other questions or comments from other council members present? All right, Mr. Brown, anything else from your end?
No, ma'am, thank you. We're very excited to really move forward with this process. We certainly would encourage all participation from council members because your input is going to be vital. Again, as this will be a document that ideally we will be utilizing to make business decisions and focus county resources. So it's a big deal.
And I definitely concur with that. It is a big deal, and I'm sure this committee feels the exact same way, and we'll work hard to get it done. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Michelle?
McBride. Mackey.
Yes.
Newton. Yes. Motion passes.